we're going to be dealing a lot with the quadratic formula and talking about a certain part of it, right? In this case, right, our quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a, right? And it's saying that this part right here, which is that part, right, underneath my radical, is the discriminant. And what that tells us, right, so if our discriminant is negative, right, that means that we have a non-real solution. Just like we did, just like we wound up getting with the last example in 37. So we're going to go through this. We're going to actually use the quadratic formula with each of these, even though not all of them is necessary to do that with. We're going to use the quadratic formula with each of them and figure out the solution, I guess. And I'll point out what the discriminant is each time, okay? All right. So if we use this particular one for A, we're looking for what A, B, and C are, right? So A is 1. What's B? 0. And C is equal to negative 9. So I can put that into my handy-dandy quadratic formula, and I get 0 plus or minus the square root of 0 minus 4 times 1 times negative 9, all divided by 2 times 1. So that gives me that 0 and that plus or minus are going to go away, right? Because 0 plus or minus anything is whatever. It's nothing, right? All right. So then what I'm left with is the square root of 36 over 2. The square root of 36 is 9. Or, I mean, I'm trying to, yeah, thanks. I don't know where I jumped to in my mind. 6 divided by 2. So that's 3. That makes sense, right? We could have solved this thing like this, right? We could have said x squared equals 9, right? Added 9 to both sides. And then said that was plus or minus the square root of 9. Which would give us, oh, I'm sorry, either plus or minus. Sorry about that. Alright. So plus or minus, sorry. So what was our discriminant for this one? The discriminant, just so that we can point it out, discriminant was 36, right? Just pointing it out. It's not really part of the answer. Just pointing it out for you guys. Let's do another one. Alright, let's do another one. So in this case, A is equal to 1, B is equal to negative 6, and C is equal to negative 9. Let's go ahead and positive 9. What's going on? Brain isn't working. Alright, negative B, or the opposite of B, right? Which is, if it was negative, so now it's going to be positive. Divided by the square root of B squared, which is negative 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times positive 9, all divided by 2 times. Alright. So that means that's equal to 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 minus 36 over 2. So our discriminant then is going to be 0, right? 6 plus or minus the square root of 0 divided by 2. That's crazy. So the 0 goes away, so I have 6. Essentially, if I was to break this up, right? Yeah, you can break it up like that. You don't really need to do that step, though, because you can see that this is automatically 0, right? This is 0 divided by 2 right here, this whole thing. So you just wind up with 3. And you have only one answer there. And doesn't it make sense that that would be true? Because if we were to solve this by factoring, this is going to be x minus 3 times x minus 3. So it only has one solution, 3. Cool. So what happened here? Our discriminant was equal to 0. Yes?
So when we're writing our discriminant, we don't take the square root. We would say it's the number within.
This discriminant is what's under your square root. Yes. And it says that, let's see, right there. So it's saying the expression under. So just the b squared minus 4ac. Oh, that's cool. All right, let's look at this one. Let's see if the handy dandy quadratic formula to this one. So we get a equals 1, b equals 0, and c is equal to positive 9. So I plug that in. Negative b, or the opposite of b, which is just 0, right? Plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 0 squared, minus 4 times 1 times 9, all divided by 2 times 1. So that 0 is going to go away. I'm going to wind up with plus or minus the square root of negative 36 all divided by 2. And hey, now that we have I, we no longer say, hey, this is just a non-real solution. We can actually express the solution as a complex number, right? Because isn't that, so this negative 36, that's the same thing as 36 times negative 1, right? Positive 36 times negative 1. So whenever you see the negative there, you can go ahead and remove it by putting an I. So that'll give me plus or minus the square root of 36 is 6 I over 2, which is plus or minus 3i. So my two answers are x equals 3i and x equals negative 3i. So in this case, our discriminant was negative, right? It was negative 36, right? So now we're going to look at each of our results. For discriminant, there's an end. I occasionally leave letters out because I don't like it. I don't know why. I do that all the time. Yeah.
So, the question, you may have already said this. What's with the lettering scheme? How we picked A, B, and C? Why did we pick it like left to right? Why did we say like, why was A 1, B, and 0, and C?
Okay, so then we have ax squared plus bx plus c, right? Well, this thing's not in that, right? There's no x term, right? Which means that b must be 0. Yeah?
Yeah.
So these two things are equivalent. I could say that x squared plus 0x plus 9, right? That's the same thing as x squared plus 9, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's going on. Good question. So hey, how does the discriminant relate to the number of solutions that we found? Well, when the discriminant was positive, okay, when it's positive, there were two real solutions, right? Yeah, I skipped the L. All right. When the discriminant was 0, there was only one real solution, right? Or one solution, really. It could be more. And when our discriminant was negative, there were two non-real solutions. This one, it could be non-real, could be complex. All right. Oh. So it's just asking us for the discriminant, right? So in order to get the discriminant for this one, first thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to get everything over onto one side of my equal sign, right? So in other words, I got to add 7 to both sides, yeah? Okay, so boom. So in this case, then A is 1, and B is 3, and C is 7, right? All we care about is the discriminant, right? So our discriminant is equal to B squared minus 4 times A times C, right? Which is going to be 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times 7. So that's 9 minus 28, which is going to be negative 19. What does that discriminant tell us about the number of solutions to this equation? It tells me there are going to be 2, and they're going to be complex, right? So this tells me there will be 2 complex solutions. Boom. Well, okay, sorry, that didn't work out. Let's go ahead and solve this thing. I'm going to use the quadratic formula we know that this discriminant is the square root of negative 19 all over 2 times 1, right? So we get negative 3 halves. We split this thing apart. Break it up like you did in Show of Love. Ooh. And that's it. There we go. Does it match? Yeah. Right? Because x is equal to negative 3 halves plus the square root of 19i over 2, and x is equal to negative 3 halves minus the square root of 19i over 2.
So is the I under or outside?
It's outside. It's outside. It should be. That's a good question. All right. And the square root of 19 does not have a whole number value, and it can be simplified, so we should know. All right, let's compute the value of this. Whoa. All right, so let's calculate the discriminant of the quadratic equation. We use the value to predict the number of solutions, and we'll find them all. All right, so what's our discriminant? Our discriminant is going to be the square root of 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times 1. Yeah? So that's the square root of 4 minus 4, which equals 0. So our discriminant is 0. So based on our previous information, how many solutions do we think it has? 1. Alright. Let's go ahead and see if that's true. So x equals negative b plus or minus. We know this is the square root of 0. Or we could just say 0, right? We've already calculated this. So let's just use the result that we got and not waste time. And 2 times 1 is 2, yeah? So then we have negative 2 over 2, and the other part's 0, right? Oh my goodness. Oh, it's not even plus or minus anymore, it's just minus. So that's negative 1. So we could say that x is equal to just negative 1. That's our only solution. So that's pretty sweet. Pretty cool. So maybe someday you'll have to solve the mathematics. I've been really working on my cage fighting.
Oh, the holy dynamite. Yeah, I was just.
Okay. So let's do another one. And we'll just follow our instructions and. So let's do it again. So our discriminant here, if our discriminant then is going to be it's the square root of 0 squared minus 4 times 1 times 4. Which is going to be equal to negative 16. So our discriminant is negative 16. Sorry, I didn't mean to put that square root there. That's terrible. Sorry about that. Discriminant does not include a square root, and so that is incorrect. Sorry. It's just negative 16. Sorry. Okay, So we find our solution. We go ahead and plug that in to x equals 0 plus or minus the square root of, we figured out this was negative 16, all divided by 2 times 1, which is 2. So we get the answer plus or minus the square root of negative 16 over 2. So that's going to be plus or minus 4I over 2. You guys see how I went from, I did a bunch of stuff all at once, or a couple things. Okay. Pulled the I out and I took the square root of 16. So then x is going to be equal to 2I, and x will be equal to negative 2I, right? Because 4 divided by 2 is 2, and we still have that I left there. Yes, I.
So how do you know if you're like use the plus and minus? On the last one we didn't.
Because it was 0. Let's look at the last one, just to clear that up there. So if we look at this last one, what happens here is if I was to do a little side thing, what we have is this is negative 2 over 2 plus or minus 0 over 2, right? So you wind up with negative 1 plus or minus 0. Well, it doesn't matter, plus or minus 0, you get the same thing. So you can just say negative 1.
So it's only if it's 0?
If your discriminant is 0, that's what's wrong. Yep. All right. Let's go ahead and solve these now. So, negative b, or the opposite of b, right? Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. Alright, our discriminant in this case, let's go ahead and calculate that. That's what I do first anyways. Whenever I'm doing these, I like to make that nice thing. Cool thing is we can calculate our discriminant all at once. So we line up with the square root of 72.
How'd you get that?
So negative 4 times 1 times negative 14 turns out to be 56.
Every time is 9. Yeah, why'd you put 1 there? A is 9.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know why I did. I got so used to putting 1 that I did it twice. Cool. Well, that's going to change something here. Alright, sorry. 4 times 9 times 14. It's 504. So 520. Alright, so it's positive. And now we got to think, hey, remember, we got to simplify these radicals. We'll have to have a little side conversation about that, right? When we're simplifying radicals, it's something that you should have done a bit in geometry, but oftentimes doesn't occur. And so when I'm simplifying a radical, I need to think to myself, hey, is this thing divisible by something that has a square root? So the things I'm checking are 4, right? All these numbers have square roots. 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 81, 100, right? And we can just keep going. So is it divisible by any of those? I guess we should check. Is it divisible by any of those? Okay. Well, let's keep going up here with our list. So we've got 121, right? 144, 169. Any of those? Then we got 196 and then 225. 4 is the biggest one of all those? And I think that's it, because 225 is going to get to be too big, right? So 4. All right. So we're going to rewrite this then as 4 times 130. So 4/18ths, that's going to be 2/9ths, right? Plus or minus. And now this 4 comes out, right? What's the square root of 4? 2, right? And the 2 comes out to the front. Is that ringing a bell now?
Yeah.
So then we get 2/9ths plus or minus. How did I write one? So weird that that just happened. 2/9ths plus or minus the square root of 130. And the reason why I'm doing this, right, is because that's 1/9, right? So there's no point in putting the 1 out in front of the 130. So then x is equal to 2/9ths plus the square root of 130 over 9, and x is equal to 2/9ths minus the square root of 130. Whew. Alright, let's rally, let's get this thing done. Okay. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. There we go. Alright, so that's going to be negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 minus 24 to minus the square root of negative 8, all divided by 6. So our discriminant is negative. We determine that this probably has 2 non-real solutions. So I wind up with negative 4, 6. I'm going to break this thing up. Plus or minus the square root of negative 8 over 6. All right. Now that this is broken up, like someone read your DMs, we're going to go ahead and simplify each thing separately. So, this is negative 8i, right? Or sorry, this is the square root of 8i. I'm just going to do that separately. We can't simplify that square root 8 using the square root of 8. That's 4 times 2, right? Yeah, 8 is 4 times 2, so 8 is divisible by one of those numbers that I wrote up there that has a square root. And so we'll write it in that way so that we can pull the square root out, right? So that becomes negative 2/3 plus or minus, and we get 2 root 2I over 6. And now we have that 2/6, we can simplify that. So this becomes plus or minus root 2I over 3, right? Because I'm going to divide my numerator by 2 and divide my denominator by 2. And that's how I get, right? I get a 1 on the top, but we're not going to put the 1 there. If you put the 1 there, it would be wrong. But it doesn't change anything, so I leave the 1 off. Then we have a 3 in our denominator.
So do you think that's wrong? Do you think the negative 2I equals negative 2?
Yeah. Yeah, at this point. That's a good question. At this point, now that you know what I is, you have to actually pull it out. So then x will be equal to negative 2/3 plus the square root of 2I over 3, and x is equal to negative 2/3 minus the square root of 2I over 3. We're going to make it. I'll make sure to get it up there. Here we go. This one, we got to get 0 on this side, right? So I wind up with 2x squared. I subtract x from both sides, yeah? And then we have x equals negative, the opposite of b. B is 1, so if it was negative, it's going to become positive. Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. I'm sure you guys have already got this right now, right? What's really weird is what happens, or not weird, but what's different is what happens at the end when we wind up simplifying these things, right? So this is 1 minus 40 all over 4. So this becomes 1 plus or minus the square root of negative 39 over 4. And then you get 1 plus or minus square root of 39I over 4. And I'm sorry, that was right, and then you know where to go from now. Okay? And then you'll break that up into 2 different solutions. Last one, just to see if something more interesting happens. I'm not sure that anything will. So this will be x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. So this is going to be a really big negative number, right? All over 2 times a. And that is going to be 4. So we wind up with the square root of negative 1008 over 16. We should check and see if that thing actually has a square root. It does not. So we'll have to figure out what it's divisible by. Okay, so it turns out that we can write this. 1008 is divisible by 144. So it's 144 times 7. And then because of that negative sign, I'll pull my I out. That doesn't sound good. Okay. And so that is going to be equal to negative 4/16 is the same thing as negative 1/4. Plus or minus, the square root of 144 is 12, so that's going to come out. And then we have times root 7. And actually, we can put our I out there with our 12 now. And that's all divided by 16. So we can simplify that further. because both 12 and 16 are divisible by 4. If I divide 12 by 4, I get 3. And if I divide 16 by 4, I get 4. And so there are our two solutions. X equals -1 4 plus or minus, my bad, -1 4 plus 3I times root 7 over 4, and X equals -1 4 minus 3I times root 7 over 4. And that is all. Check the calendar for your homework. Thanks for watching.